In this review we're looking at a model of the Kato KA-1300R by Yagao. Now looking at the box, it seems to be just the same as the factory colour version we've seen before, but actually this one is in a limited edition colour scheme. It is in the colours of the Taiwanese crane company Chi-de. The two trays have the neat locking system of a plastic former at each end, and that's so much better than cutting tapes. There are some parts in the top of the lid, and if we take it off, there is the crane sitting in the bottom tray. All we need to do then is to carefully lift it out. We will start by getting the model ready for the road, and out of the box the ropes are tied up. That includes a single rope running to the main hook, and not only is it tied on but it's also glued. So it's a bit of a messy job to take the rope off and clean it up. But quick as a flash, here is the model reeved up and the hooks are fixed to the chain at the front of the cab. Next we've lifted the boom because we need to fit the main counterweight block on its carrying position in the middle of the crane. And once it's in place it slots down nicely. We can then lower the boom back down and then move on to fit the heavy fly jib. Its fixes on the side in the usual way. You offer it up and line up the fixing holes, and then you can secure it by pushing in a steel pin. There's another fixing point further back, but you don't really need to use it. We're nearly done now, and the only thing we need to add on are some handrails at the back. The ones on the real crane probably fold down for transport, but we'll install them anyway rather than leaving them off completely. Looking underneath, the chassis is very detailed, and if the real crane was ever painted white underneath, it certainly wouldn't stay that way for long. The transmission and suspension is modelled throughout. Moving to the cab, and there are some nice graphics and lights, but it's interesting that it doesn't have a realistic license plate. There's more nice decoration on the driving cab door, and there's a stepping plate into the cab. While we are here, the two hook blocks are metal. Behind the cab there's some nice detailing of the various components, and particularly good is the etched metal grills. Another nice detail is the wheels, which have different hubs on driven and non-driven axles. The outrigger posts are painted, and there are nice lights and more chevrons at the back. There's really nice quality decoration on the side with highlighted panel handles, and some very sharp graphics, including some very small ones. Also at the back are some very nice etched grills. Up on top, various pieces of equipment are modelled. There are no hydraulic hoses running to the winch motors, but the drums look good enough, and the counterweight attachment mechanism is also modelled, although it's non-functional. The heavy looking cab has got some nice metal grab rails, and there's more nice graphics and a textured walkway plate. The windows have large looking wipers. The boom has got various components modelled, and only the long metal pin that secures the fly jib looks out of place. The boom head has got some nice pulleys, but a little disappointing is the main block, which is a single piece. With the crane on its back, all of the wheels turn easily, and the steering consists of the front three axles being linked. It would have been more flexible if they'd been independent like the rear two, but even so, many of the steering modes of the real crane can be replicated. So out on the test track, let's see how the crane rolls along. And it's a heavy model, and it's one of the smoothest rolling cranes we've seen. But can it turn round in a tight space in your display case? Well, let's set the steering and see what it can manage. The good news is the steering doesn't wobble around, and when we try driving the crane along, it does follow a sharp curve. And if you want, you could also set a crab steering mode. Unusually for a model like this, you can get in and out of the cab, and a plastic pointer is supplied to make it easy. Just don't get your head caught in the door when it slams shut. Talking of swollen heads, if you don't want to fall off the boom when you're rigging it, You can raise up some safety posts. And I suppose on the real crane there would be a line stretching between them which you could clip yourself onto. Anyway, look, we've arrived on site, so let's get the crane set up, and first thing is to pull out the outriggers. And on this model they're a little bit stiff to open them up the first time. The beams are metal and you lower the pads in the usual way by unscrewing, and that reveals the pistons to be screw threads. There were no spreader plates included with this model, so we'll add on some of our own. And if you want, you can set the crane up to be wheels free. But under load, the outrigger beams lose their straightness, so for posing it's better to leave the crane on its tyres. We move to the front and disconnect the two hooks, and that lets us lift the boom up. And again, initially on this model, the boom was very stiff to raise. And that's a little bit unusual because the boom rams do have metal jackets, and they are normally locked in position using a grub screw. But once you get past the initial stickiness, the boom flies up. To lock the boom at a particular angle, an Allen key is supplied, and you use that to tighten up the two grub screws in the hydraulic rams. If you want, you can play crane driver with the model, and the winches work by inserting a key into the axles at the end of the drums. Here we've attached one of the counterweight cheek weights onto the hook, and superb skill is being shown as we lower the cheek weight into position. Yes, only on cranes etc. can you see such quality. If you don't have time for any of that, you can use two giant hand cranes to fit the cheek weights on, and then you can do what the real crane does, and it rotates around in order to be able to attach the counterweight. And it's nice to rotate the crane because it's easy, smooth, and there's no jerkiness. The crane would normally pick up the counterweight itself, but we'll use our giant hand cranes to attach it, and then we're ready for work. The crane cab has got some nice features associated with it. There's a walkway platform which pulls out underneath. And just like the cab on the carrier, it's always nice if you can actually get inside. And if you want to have that nice laid-back approach, you can tilt the cab. The telescopic boom extends in the normal way, but it was a little bit stiff to start, and it's best to have a load on the hook when you do it. Each section of the boom locks at full extension, and it uses the usual locking clip method. If you want some more height or reach at the tip of the boom, you can add the fly jib, and it's nice and easy to do because you don't need to unreeve any of the hooks. The fly jib is a heavy metal piece and it fits easily over the end of the boom, and it locates itself well, and to lock it in place a couple of steel pins are provided. The quality of the model in this area is very good because the pins go in very easily. There is a change on this model compared to the version in Kato colours, and on this version the hydraulic ram that controls the angle of the fly jib is locked by using an Allen key on a grub screw. Something that's unusual on this crane is that the fly jib is itself telescopic, and it consists of 4 separate sections. And fully extended it becomes a very long fly jib, and it's about 21 inches or 54 centimetres. This is a very attractive looking limited edition crane model in the colours of Chi-Day. The paintwork and graphics is very good, and there is some very nice detailing. There's also lots of functionality, although some of it was a little bit sticky on the review model. But overall, if you want a very nice looking Japanese crane, this one is very good.